Welcome to UBC TV. My name is Glen Karamagi. Yet another Monday evening, and it has nothing to do, but always when it comes to 9 to 10 p.m. it is Conserve our Heritage. In the studio, I'm not alone. A good precursor for those who have been following the UBC backdrops there. You must have seen the Pearl of Africa that has very many tourism centers and the sites. But above all, there's some element of conservation, which was taking 80% of that documentary we've been watching. Now, having conservation in Uganda, there is a body that is mandated to manage it on the behalf of the people of Uganda, so they say. But here in the studio, I'm not alone. You're enjoying Conserve our Heritage. I have a gentleman in the studio. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, viewers. It's nice to be back. It has been a while since I was here.
After a while, I would say Happy New Year because it must have been last year.
Sure, thank you.
But it's another year that is almost coming to an end. But
it's good to be back.
Who do we have in the studio?
You have Charles Tumwesigye, the Deputy Director of Field Operations at Uganda Wildlife Authority.
What's the difference? Last time you were Deputy Director Conservation. Now you're coming as a Deputy Director. Is it a promotion?
It's not a promotion. It's not different. It's just a change in title. I think the board decided to give me a title that befits what I do. At Uganda Wildlife Authority, I supervise the field operations. I supervise the parks. I supervise the
all
reserves.
the 10 national parks?
Yes, all the activities in the national parks. I supervise operations. I supervise law enforcement. So I think the board thought that I'm better off called the Deputy Director of Field Operations because what I do is field operations generally. But in addition to field operations, I also happen to be the Sites Desk Officer at Uganda Wildlife Authority, and I'm hoping that as we go along, I will be able to split CITES so that people can understand what I'm talking about when I say CITES.
Yeah, thank you very much. Tumwesigye Charles, Deputy Director, Field Operations. And we're going to be looking at today's topic, which is legal and illegal wildlife trade. It's common to what we've been looking at, but since we have the right man in the studio, he's going to tell us exactly what it means. And I think above all, is going to be defining for us what is legal and illegal wildlife trade, because Ugandans would want to be part of wildlife, because like you said, the constitution, because it was an act of parliament,
yes,
whereby you're given a mandate to take care of these resources for the Ugandans.
Yes, please. But
many times there's been poaching where people think they're supposed to be arrested for poaching because they have the right to have those the meals and firewood. So you should tell us what is legal and illegal. For starters, legal wildlife trade.
Okay, so let's talk about wildlife trade in general. And as the name suggests, trade. Just like any other business, one can actually trade in wildlife. You have people trading in cars, you have people trading in merchandise. So one can actually trade in wildlife. It is one of the most lucrative businesses in the world. That is multi-billion dollars. But there is the one which is allowed, and that is what we call the legal trade. And then we have that trade which is done behind the scenes, and that is illegal trade.
Yes.
So, yes, you can actually trade in wildlife. You can be licensed, you can acquire a license and be allowed to trade in wildlife. You can catch frogs and sell them if you didn't know. You know, people just see wildlife moving around.
Let me hope that is a joke.
They don't know that you can actually make money out of it. No,
let me hope selling frogs is a joke.
You can actually catch frogs and sell them,
Mr.
provided
Charles,
you do it legally.
Let me hope it's not the frogs you're talking about, because at least one time I was shocked with the butterflies.
Yes.
Then when you talk of frogs, I think it's a joke. I don't think it's real.
No, I'm just being rhetoric, but also mentioning
because I would just go to my village and get all those frogs, and you give me a guideline.
First of all, you must have where to sell them. So you don't just get them, and you must have a market. So yes, there is the trade that is allowed, and it is called legal wildlife trade. Now, when you look at the Uganda Wildlife Act, which is the main law governing wildlife in Uganda, it provides for different ways in which people can engage in wildlife use or wildlife use. You can trade, you can farm, you can breed, you can ranch, you can use wildlife for research, you can also pick medicine. So though there are different ways, and trade is one of them that is allowed. And many people don't know that you can actually trade. They know, but they don't know that you need to be allowed to do that legally. And so they did the illegal one.
So besides, is trade part of the 6 classes?
Yes, we have 6 classes. Trade is actually class A. Class A is trade. If you wanted to deal in wildlife, if you wanted to trade in wildlife, you can apply for a license or a wildlife use right called trade. That is class A. There are other wildlife use rights. There is farming, that is class B. There is ranching, that is class C. No, trade is actually class D, sorry. Class A is hunting.
Is hunting, yes.
Class B is farming. Class C is ranching, and class D is trade. So if you can trade in live wildlife, but you can also trade in wildlife products. You can trade in hair, in skin, in bones, in several products of wildlife.
Well, are there regulations in Uganda and maybe international in this wildlife trade? Because if you give me a license, that's class D to trade, and maybe probably it is so happening that I am selling the way I want, because if you give me a chance to sell wildlife products, I can decide to sell frogs, like you said, I go sell butterflies, maybe crocodiles. Are there regulations, or is it regulated anyway?
Wildlife trade is regulated both nationally and internationally. On the national scale, on the national level, we have the Uganda Wildlife Act, which provides guidelines on how you can deal in wildlife trade. But this is also deriving from international. Now, at the international level, as I mentioned earlier, wildlife trade is one of the most lucrative businesses. People don't know. Those who are dealing in it are actually very, very rich. So, in 1973...
You cannot mention one of the few rich guys who have...
Well, there are so many. There are so many. In 1973, nations under the United Nations got together in Washington, D.C. and signed an agreement about trade in wildlife, because at that time it was seen that trade in wildlife was becoming very lucrative, it was not regulated, and it was leading to extinction of some species in the wild. People were catching birds and other animals and exporting them without minding about the survival of these species in the wild. So nations got together and signed an agreement and say, you know what, we need to regulate trade. And that's when this animal called CITES, which I'll talk about, was born. And CITES is just a convention. It's a UN convention on international trade in endangered species.
Okay, so what is CITES in full?
CITES is an abbreviation. It is C-I-T-E-S.
Yes.
So C stands for Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species.
Okay.
Now, the catchword there is endangered species. So CITES was created to regulate trade in those species that are endangered. In other words, those species which are threatened by extinction if you don't do anything. There are many species which are widespread. Many frogs that we talked about and some butterflies may not be endangered. And so those ones will not be regulated by CITES. But there are those which are endangered, which are very few. Let's take an example of elephants.
Okay.
Those ones you can't actually trade in some of these, and I will talk about the way the species are classified into what can you trade, what can you not trade,
yes.
And if you don't want a species to be traded in, what do you do? We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So the species which are endangered is what CITES regulates.
What are these species?
Now these species, the convention, as I mentioned, is a text. It has a text. It has 25 articles describing how it regulates trade. And the way it works is that this convention classifies species into classes or appendices. We have what we call Appendix 1.
Yeah.
Now that is the highest level of protection. If they put you in appendix 1 glens and say you are in appendix 1, that is don't touch.
Hey.
So if you are in appendix 1, it means that those species are highly endangered, are highly threatened, and normally trade in those species is generally not accepted.
You're keeping me waiting, Mr. Charles. I want to know these endangered species because, like,
no, they are quite a number. But if I may give you an example of endangered species we have in Uganda, we have elephants, chimps, gorillas, lions, leopards. Actually, all our primates are endangered species. But now, being endangered is not enough. Even when you are endangered, there is the level of you could be endangered, but not a bigger extent.
Yes.
But you could also be endangered to a very big extent. So if you are very endangered and your survival in the wild is very critical, and we must make sure that you survive, we control trade, you are put in appendix 1. And the convention works through what we call a conference of parties. So parties which are members to that convention meet every 3 years, and they discuss. Other parties make proposals and say, we think our elephants are endangered, they are threatened by trade, their habitat is getting degraded, we should list these in appendix 1. Or for us, we think that
an animal becomes endangered.
Yes.
That is, if it is getting extinct.
If it is getting towards extinct, either because of the habitat, loss of habitat, because of trade, there are animals which may not be necessarily endangered as a result of trade. So let's take an example of lions. Lions are endangered in Uganda, but they are being endangered has nothing to do with trade. We don't have people catching lions for trade in Uganda. But they are endangered because people are poisoning them, their habitat is dwindling, and they are competing with livestock.
With the communities.
So even at that level, they are endangered. But when you look at elephants, elephants are endangered. But what is causing they are being endangered? To many things. One is the habitat, yes, because the national parks are few, the corridors have been settled in, but there is also trade. People are looking for ivory. And so they are hunting these elephants left, right, and center. You can't have elephants outside the national parks in Uganda. So those ones are endangered. Now those which are highly endangered are classified into appendix 1. And trade in those species at international level, at national level, is not acceptable. Now, then appendix 2, we have, let me finish this. If you are endangered,
we may not have much time.
Appendix 2.
I'm very worried here. When we talk of appendix 1, appendix 2, yes, appendix 1 may look at the most endangered species, but you're talking of ivory, which comes from an elephant, which is both extinct because of, you say, the habitat, at the same time trade.
It is not extinct, but if you don't do anything about what is happening, it can get extinct.
Now, in appendix 2,
let's go to appendix 2. Yeah. Now, for those species which are endangered, which are still abundant, but if you don't regulate their trade, you can cause their extinction. They are grouped into appendix 2. Now, when you are put in appendix 2, trade is permissible. You can trade in appendix 2 species on condition that you get a license to export and to import. So if you want to export an appendix 2 species, let me give an example of birds. We have birds. Most of our bird species are actually in appendix 2. And you put the species in appendix 2(1) to show that you need to protect it. Otherwise, you can easily export it and finish it. But it is still okay. You can trade as long as you regulate. So that is one. But 2, you might have species which resemble an endangered species, and especially with birds. And that is common with primates. In primates, these monkeys, there are various species of monkeys. Yes. Because some species are highly endangered, there are very few remaining. And you don't want people to say whether this is the real one. So you decide that all monkeys are in appendix 1, because you don't want somebody to get the one which is in which looks like the one which is endangered and export it. So they are what we call lookalike species. So if you have a lookalike species, even if it is not endangered and even if it is abundant, but it looks like a species which is highly endangered, it will also be listed either as Appendix 1 or Appendix 2. Then we also have Appendix 3, and that's where they stop. Now, Appendix 3 is for a party like Uganda may want to protect its national bird. Let me give an example. We have a national bird, which is the crested crane. Now, if the crested crane was not listed as either Appendix 1 or Appendix 2, fortunately it is listed as Appendix 2. But if it was not protected in those categories, as a country...
Before it goes in Appendix 2, what do you think they would do with that bird?
No, I mean, it is colorful. Somebody would want to have it as a pet. If you exported crested cranes and you had the way of keeping them in your compound, I think they would make very good pets. So if you allowed trade, people would catch them and take them and use them as pets in Asia, in Europe, in America, everywhere. I think one would love to have them. So you need to protect it. So if that bird was not in Appendix 1 or 2, and it is a national bird, Uganda would apply to CITES and say, look, this bird is our national bird, but it is not very endangered, but we don't want to see it in trade. So we are requesting that you protect it on our behalf. And so
which you have not yet done?
So that one would be put in Appendix 3. No, it is in Appendix 2. Our crested crane is in Appendix 2. So it is already protected,
it's already protected,
meaning you can trade in it, but with a license. But because it is our national bird, for us, it is not a question of being in Appendix 1 or Appendix 2. That is at international level. For us, it is, do we have them? Do we have enough of them? Even if it is in Appendix 2, or even if it is not listed in any appendix. Let me give an example. Sitatunga is an animal, a swamp animal. Yeah. It is not listed. It is not in Appendix 1, it is not in Appendix 2.
Not in Appendix 3.
And not in Appendix 3. But we cannot give, we regulate that one. We cannot allow anybody to export much as it is not.
Do you have a reason why?
Because we think that the swamps are dwindling. And that's where its habitat is. And much as it has not been a lot in trade, its habitat is declining, and we are seeing less and less of them. So we want to give you a license to trade in
now, are those some of the measures that Uganda has put in place to address some of these endangered species? Because we wanted to zero down to ivory trafficking, because this is one of, like you said, elephants are in Appendix 1.
Yes.
You don't have to trade it, you don't have to do anything close to it, kill it. And if you're found with ivory, maybe by accident, still you have to explain.
How would you be found with ivory by accident? That means you have either killed an elephant or acquired it from somebody.
No, what if maybe you got law enforcement were chasing the culprits, and maybe they dropped it on my...
At least you have said they were chasing the culprit. Yes. That means if I'm chasing a culprit, and I'm actually a law enforcer myself, so if I'm chasing a culprit and he drops ivory, then why should you pick it and keep it? Because it is not yours. Why should you keep it? You are not allowed. But anyway, let's talk about illegal wildlife trade, because we have talked much about the legal one. You can apply for those who want to trade in wildlife. You can come to our offices. We have guidelines on how you can trade. You can do breeding. You can ranch. You can trade live or the products of animals. Some people you breed, you can be given a license to breed and then export what you breed. Now that is the legal one. But the world now is faced with unprecedented spike in illegal wildlife trafficking or wildlife trade. And this is threatening to overturn decades of conservation gains. I want to tell you that since 2011, over 23, in 2011, 23 metric tons of ivory, representing 2,500 elephants, were seized in airports and seaports around the world in 1 year.
Just now, 2011.
23 metric tons seized, having been in illegal trade, because right now elephants are in Appendix 1 for most of elephant populations, except South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. The rest of the populations are in Appendix 1, which means there is no trade that is allowed. You cannot trade in an elephant, neither can you trade in an elephant product. And ivory definitely is an elephant product. But look, 23 metric tons seized in 1 year.
In all airports and
representing 2,500 elephants illegally killed. Even those countries whose populations are in Appendix 2, because you know, if you are able to justify that you have worked on the threats, your habitat is okay, your population is healthy, the numbers are growing, and that's what those countries managed to demonstrate. They are even destroying the habitat. You can put up a case, and your species in question can be downlisted. So those countries have their elephants in Appendix 2. But even those ones which have Appendix 2, there is what we call an annotation on the, when the ivory ban, there was an ivory ban that was put in 1989. Elephants were listed, I think, in 1976 in Appendix 1. And then in 1989, the ones for those South African were downlisted to Appendix 2. And, but at the same time, a ban, an international ban was put that much as your elephants are in Appendix 2, you are not allowed to trade in ivory, because we don't want a situation where other countries can suffer as a result of what you are doing. So even those ones, there is a ban. Although, because they have that appendix, their elephants are in Appendix 2, there is a window from the site's perspective that allows you to actually deal in trade in Appendix 2 species. So these countries somehow managed to use that window and request for permission to trade, to sell their ivory stockpiles. Because they were in Appendix 2, they could license people to hunt them, but they could not export the ivory because there was an international ban. But within the country, they could hunt and stock the ivory. But they were also saying that these elephants were destroying the habitats, were destroying people's crops, they were too many, and they needed to reduce their numbers to cull. Yes. So they were doing culling and cropping. And so they accumulated huge stockpiles, several tons of ivory. And they were able to demonstrate at the Conference of Parties in 2007 that, you know, for us, we have kept our population, even after we did the culling and cropping and what, our population is still growing. So please, we have this data, this is information on how we acquired the ivory. It was acquired legally, we didn't kill illegally. So allow us to export once as a one-off. And that permission was granted around 2007.
That is by CITES? By
CITES.
Before I take you back, this CITES, how do you join CITES? Because I'm imagining, is Uganda part of CITES?
Yes, I will come to that, but let me conclude the other one so that people can understand what I'm driving at. So despite the ban, these countries were allowed a one-off sale to Japan and I think China, and that one-off sale was done in 2009 and maybe early 2010. Finished. The CITES went and evaluated what they had, monitored, escorted the shipment, and that was done. But what that did...
That is in Southern Africa?
For South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia.
Yeah.
Yes, those are the countries whose population is in Appendix.
Those who had a one-off.
Yeah, so they were given a one-off, and they sold their stockpile. But we think that that selling opened the market in the Asian countries. And so when that one-off was finished, and they had opened the market, remember, the market needed, there was demand. So we think that this 2011, which had the highest metric tons of ivory, could be associated with that. There was the market which was opened, and the demand, there is no source because it was a one-off, nobody else is supposed to sell. So that triggers what? It triggers illegal killing of elephants all over the world, all over Africa, to supply the market. That's what we think. It is
that's why we had to go into those metric tons of ivory that were...
Now let me come back to your question.
Uganda, yes.
Yes, yes, when you have to join CITES because it is a convention, it is a UN convention, and it has to be ratified by your government. There is a process of ratification which is done through Parliament and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And so you go through a rigorous process, you apply, and then you join. So Uganda was admitted and joined CITES in 1993. And that
Just
was
of
20
recent.
years. No, it is not recently. That was 20 years after CITES was born. It took us 20 years to join.
When was CITES?
CITES was born in 1973.
73.
And we didn't join until 1993. But even as late as last year, we still had countries. Angola has just joined CITES. So, but I think now we have very few countries that have not yet joined CITES. It's one of the conventions that many countries are a party to. So yes, you apply, you become a member of CITES, and once you become a member of CITES, you are bound by the convention to do certain things. One, you must domesticate, you must regulate trade. There are things you must do. You must regulate trade, and you must penalize illegal trade as a condition. You must designate what we call a management authority that is responsible for giving the permits and licenses for export, import, re-export. By the way, you can import, re-export. You can. So those are the terms that they use in CITES. And then you must designate one or two or more scientific authorities. The scientific authorities, their role is to advise the management authority before you issue a license. Our management authority for CITES is the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife and Antiquities.
Yes,
and Uganda Wildlife Authority is the scientific authority for the fauna. The Forest Sector Department in the Ministry of Water is the scientific authority for the plants. So before the ministry issues any license to export, the scientific authority must advise that you can issue the license. This trade is not detrimental to the species that you want to export. So one of the things is you must designate a management authority, you must designate scientific authorities, and you must regulate trade, and you must penalize illegal trade. Those are the basic principles that must be in your law for you to comply with CITES.
Are these specifically on the head of Uganda Life Authority, or it involves URA, these guys who are seizing some of the things, or you have?
When you become a party, it is the country that joins these conventions as a party. So basically, the Wildlife Authority might be an implementing agency, but the entire country is bound. That's why it is ratified by government. So police is bound to implement this. URA Customs is bound. Even you are bound to implement CITES because your country, your government ratified it. So we are a member. So you are bound to be bound by the CITES provisions. So we go back to the ivory.
Yes.
I think you wanted more about it.
About ivory, because I think very many arrests are much on ivory. Few are on these other endangered species like pangolins, but when you look at ivory, this is the most endangered. And the business is doing well for them. Most of these guys were in it. So
I've already told you that illegal wildlife trade is very lucrative. Actually, the research shows that it is worth $23 billion. $23 billion is what illegal wildlife trade is worth. That is at the global scale, and these are UN figures. The legal one, which is allowed, is worth about $7 billion. So you can see much of the wildlife trade is actually illegal. Now,
black market is better than the the real market.
Yes, because people don't want to go through the rigorous process. And you know, first of all, like ivory, nobody is allowed. You will never get a license to export ivory. But somewhere, in one place, there is a market. So you want to try and beat the procedures, you want to try and beat the security and get to that market. So that is why we have illegal trade now. What we have seen in Uganda also is that since 2011, and that's why I relate it to this one of sale, we also saw a lot of increase. Actually, before 2015, for us as Uganda, we're having a problem. Ivory would be seized in Singapore, in Malaysia, in China, in Asia, having been shipped from Uganda. We would not seize it. Even in some of it would be seized in Nairobi and Mombasa, having been seized from Uganda. So that meant that there was a problem. Ivory was passing through Uganda unnoticed. And as a result, CITES, that body, one time when we were in Bangkok for the Conference of Parties number 16, Uganda was listed among 8 other countries. Some people call it the Gang of 8 that were involved in illegal ivory trade. As a source.
Which year was that?
2013. As a source and a transit. And that is very dangerous because when you are listed, they give you instructions to do something. If you don't do that, they will suspend you from trade. Now, if you are suspended from trade, it's not only wildlife trade, by the way. Even EU will suspend you from this trade. If we are trading with EU on a number of things, fish, what. So if you are suspended for wildlife, these guys will say, these people are not doing
even
this.
Keep your fish.
So we don't even want your fish, we don't want your whatever, because it looks like your systems are not good. So that was very dangerous. And they asked us to do an action plan and implement it. And we went and sat and developed the National Ivory Action Plan to address how we are going to deal with ivory. And this is what we promised CITES and the world that we are going to do. We said, one, we are going to work on our registration because we realized that the problem was our law. The Wildlife Law, the Wildlife Act was having, or is still having, because it has not been amended.
Loopholes.
Loopholes and weak penalties. If you are caught with ivory and you plead guilty, or even if you don't plead guilty, if you are convicted, the fine is 1 million Uganda shillings. So you pay it and go away.
You're dealing
with
someone who is handling billions.
Exactly. So
but
paying
you're giving him only 1 million
that's
as a
what
penalty.
the law. That's what the current law says. So we said we are going to work on our registration. We are going to cross the loopholes in the registration, and we are also going to work on the penalties. So that was the commitment we said we are going to do. 2, we said we are going to strengthen our enforcement. We are going to deploy at the airport. We are going to introduce dogs, because you know human beings, one of the reasons Uganda was being used is that Ugandans like kitu kidogo.
Yeah, which has been the trade alone.
Yeah, so it was,
because
people
they'll give you an option.
It could easily, I mean, somebody
they'll give you an option.
Yeah.
The book is here, which states all the penalties. But the best thing is, give me kintu kidogo, I will not use this book. And you find that's the only way to survive.
Yeah, so now we realize that one way to beat it is, let's bring the dogs. The dogs are not corrupt. And these dogs know how to sniff. You train them, and they sniff ivory and other products, rhino horn, pangolin. And so for you, what we do is, everybody, every passenger who is passing through the airport, you don't know even how it happens. You know the luggage is put on a conveyor belt and it goes. But before it goes, the dog passes. And when there is ivory or any other wildlife product, the dog will pick it. So we said we are going to bring dogs. We are going to strengthen our intelligence. We are going to strengthen our enforcement. We also promised that we are going to improve our sensitization, because the general public was not aware about the dangers of this ivory trafficking and illegal wildlife trade. People saw it, as you are saying, why not? Why can't I get this? If I found it, why can't I make some money? So we thought we should work on awareness, and we also thought that we should improve our regional cooperation, because, as I mentioned, Uganda ivory, which has passed from Uganda, would be seized in Nairobi, in Kenya, in Singapore, and we thought that for us to deal with, so that means that there are dealers who are here and they have connections in those countries. So if you don't have international collaboration and coordination, and you work on this one, and the other one doesn't work on theirs, there will be a problem, because they will find another agent. So we put up an ivory action plan, and I'm glad that we have been implementing it. If you have gone through Entebbe, you can't pass with ivory. Since we deployed there now, you cannot pass with ivory.
Do you want to tell me on the few things you told CITES, improving the enforcement, changing the laws, dogs, and then the rest? Have you registered success? A
lot of success. We have done about 3 reports to CITES with pictures, with evidence, with reports of these seizures, and even with the arrests. We've arrested quite a number of people, although in all our arrests, I think we have only succeeded in having 1 or 2 kingpins, whom we believe are kingpins. In most cases, these guys are elusive. They have a very good intelligence network. They are well connected. They know how to beat the system. So you rarely get the big guys, the real
Guys
dealers.
who are, yes.
They will come and sit in Serena Hotel here, and the
karamagi does the deal.
Karamagi will do the deal, and when you arrest the karamagi, the other one will take off. You will not get him. So but we have finally arrested one or two of the kingpins, and we hope that that is a good thing. So yes, we have implemented these actions, and there is tremendous progress. That is why now Uganda is being credited. We are doing very, very well in curtailing illegal wildlife trade. We are even arresting rhino horns. We don't have rhinos in Uganda. We have rhinos, but they are in the sanctuary. There are only 23 now.
What's the difference?
Our total rhino population is 23, but we have a stockpile of rhino horns of about 30 rhino horns. So where did they come from? It means that people are using Uganda. Even the ivory I've talked about, we have seized up to 12 tons of ivory.
So you work with URA? I'm looking at a picture of URA that is...
URA is in charge of customs. And so we coordinate with them. We have trained their officers, their customs officers, and they are very good partners of ours. So even in areas, because we are not everywhere, but they have customs officers on every border. And so we have trained those customs officers. They are able to
differentiate,
detect, where they have issues, they call us if they are suspicious. But of course, ivory is ivory. You cannot hide ivory. They only get problems in the products like bangles. They are bangles, chopsticks.
Now, how do you tell that is ivory? To me, it looks like mogo.
No.
or maybe
that is ivory. That is ivory, and there are scientific mechanisms of determining identifying ivory. We have experts. By the way, when we have these court cases, we normally give expert evidence in court, and we are able to prove that this is ivory and not a cow horn. Because somebody can say this is a cow horn, it's not ivory. But we are able to prove through scientific means that this is ivory. So even the ivory, we have 12 tons of ivory that we have confiscated. But you can't tell me that this is from our elephants. Our elephant population has been increasing since 2000. We started in around 1996. We had about 2,000 elephants. We had less than 2,000 elephants. Now we have crossed 6,000 elephants. Uganda is one of the few countries, by the way, other than Southern African countries I talked about, whose elephant population is increasing. The other countries, the elephant population is going down.
So that means
this means this ivory is actually coming from somewhere else.
Not Uganda.
And it's passing through here. There is some from Uganda because we are also losing some elephants here and there. But the big quantities we are seizing, we've seized ivory that has come as far away as Angola. Ivory from Togo has been seized here in Uganda. Ivory from Tanzania has been seized, and we are able to do that, by the way, because somebody has done research and genetically mapped the elephant populations in Africa. So if you got a piece of ivory and picked samples, you can use DNA mapping, and you are able to trace which population it is coming from. So you are able to know that this is from this population and this population.
So you're very well equipped now. Because of time, Charles, you forgive me, time is not our best ally. But one message I have, thanks for the presentation, sir. My question is why monkey is not part of the endangered species. Unfortunately, did not leave his name. I keep the messages coming. Charles probably will be coming back to give us more about it, because even he has not gone down to tell us how he has the percentage of success. He has, because we still have to talk about where are you left to cover, what have
and what we are doing with all this ivory.
Yes.
I know you are interested in that. So
we wanted to rush into it, but we never had time. Why not monkeys?
No, monkeys are endangered species. They are listed in Appendix 1, actually, because they are lookalike to species that are highly endangered. So all our monkeys are listed. But we also have them as vermin because they are in abundance. So if you want to trade in them, there are exceptions. If you wanted to trade in Appendix 1 species, there are exceptional circumstances where you can be allowed. Now for us, if we can be able to demonstrate that the velvet monkeys, for example, are so many, they are vermin, they are destructive, we can even license somebody to export under exceptional circumstances. But monkeys are listed as endangered, and they're in Appendix 1.
Now a quick one before your final remarks. Thanks for the program. I'm Eddie from Kasese. How are you doing to handle what are you doing to handle the diplomats? Because they may be also culprits. How far with recruitment?
Okay, with diplomats, we are working through foreign affairs. But one thing I want to mention is that fighting illegal wildlife trade in this country has the highest level of support from the president, His Excellency the President. And he has on many occasions talked about it. And that gives us courage. So most of these diplomats who have been involved are doing it on their own. So once they are involved, we use the diplomatic means through foreign affairs, and they are handled as individuals. We had challenges of accessing the diplomatic bags at the airport, but now the dogs are allowed to search those bags. We can reach VIP sections of the airport. So I think there is tremendous progress. Since we started, we are seeing tremendous progress with the fight against illegal wildlife trade.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Immaculate from Kanungu. You want to know much about elephants. I think Charles Tumwesigye will be back in the studio to do much on these questions. And because of time, we have to say thank you very much for being part of Conserve this Monday. It has been such a short time.
Yeah.
But hope next time you'll definitely come back and give us more about it.
Thank you for hosting me. I will come back.
Thank you.
Okay, the time was so